Okay, so picture this. You're all set for a nice walk with your dog. You're thinking, peaceful stroll, enjoying the outdoors.
Right.
But instead, what happens? Your arm feels like it's about to detach, the dog's pulling like a freight train, and that whole relaxing vibe. Gone. It's more like a battle. Does that sound familiar?
Oh, absolutely. That's such a common thing.
Yeah.
Leash pulling can really um, suck the fun right out of what should be a great time for both of you.
Yeah, you want those easy walks, but it turns into this stressful event.
Totally.
Exactly. And well, that's what we're digging into today. One of you sent in a request wanting to go deeper than just the usual tips to really get the nuts and bolts of good dog training.
And you sent us some great stuff to look at.
Yeah, a really interesting mix. Info from some local obedience classes, a couple of really helpful YouTube videos showing specific leash techniques, and even an article about dog agility.
It's a good combination because you get the structured class perspective, the sort of practical how-to from the videos, and then this other activity angle with agility.
Mm.
Gives us different ways to look at it.
For sure. So our mission today is to kind of pull all this apart, find the really actionable advice, maybe uncover some, surprising bits, and give you a clearer roadmap for getting those better leash manners. Plus, look at how these other training ideas fit in. Okay, let's get into it.
So starting with the perfect pause info, what really jumps out is their whole philosophy. It's about using training to build a stronger bond with your dog.
Right, not just about commands.
Exactly. They talk a lot about positive reinforcement and how their classes from puppy basics right up to like advanced stuff are all about strengthening that connection.
And they offer different levels, which makes sense. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing, is it? Puppy, beginner, advanced, even competition level if you really get into it. It shows training is a journey.
Definitely. And they mentioned a newer class, Rally Obedience. Sounds interesting. Less formal than traditional obedience, maybe.
Yeah, they describe it as more interactive. You and your dog working as a team, navigating a course using verbal cues, body language, and again, positive rewards.
That team aspect sounds really appealing. It taps into that desire we all have to, actually communicate with our dogs, make it feel like a partnership.
Totally. Which kind of brings us back to leash pulling because that often feels like a communication breakdown, right?
Absolutely. And understanding why dogs pull, that's where the insights from Zach, George, and McCann dog training are super helpful.
Yes, the why feels like step one. Zach George points out something pretty basic but important. Dogs just walk faster than us, naturally.
Right. Their default pace is quicker.
And then you think about specific breeds, hunting dogs, herding dogs, retrievers. They were literally bred for endurance, for covering ground. So our casual pace is like torture for them sometimes.
Yeah, it's completely at odds with their instincts. Recognizing that, understanding your dog's breed background can really help set realistic expectations for training. A border collie needs a different approach than, say, a basset hound.
Makes sense. And both Zach George and McCann really emphasize dealing with that pent-up energy before you even start leash training.
Crucial point.
Especially for high-energy dogs. Just relying on the walk itself for exercise probably won't cut it if you want them calm enough to learn loose leash walking.
Right. They suggest things like dog sports, maybe fetch, or longer hikes first. Get some of that zoom out.
It just makes perfect sense. A dog that's already had a good run or play session is going to be way more focused and receptive when you put the leash on for training.
So, okay, the dog's pulling constantly. Where do you actually start the training? Both sources agree. Start inside.
Inside.
Yeah, in a familiar spot with fewer distractions. It helps set them up for success right at the beginning, less likely to fail.
That's smart. Minimize the chaos. And Zach George has this first rule he talks about. Super simple.
Yeah.
If there's any tension on the leash, you just don't move forward.
Stop dead, basically.
Yeah. Stop dead. And he also talks about using treats initially, not to lure them, but to get their attention. Reward eye contact. Build that connection before you even take a step.
And I liked his point about rewarding behaviors the dog already knows, but doing it while they're on the leash.
Ah, okay. Like sit.
Exactly. And if your dog knows sit, ask for it while leashed, then reward. It starts linking good behavior they already understand with being calm on the leash, weaving it into that specific context.
That's clever. And it's probably good advice not to get sidetracked if they start jumping or something else, right? Focus on the leash manners for now.
Yeah, tackle one thing at a time. Patience is key. Now, inevitably, you have to move outside.
Right, the real world. That's where it gets tricky.
Definitely. Zach George mentions his new sight, smells, sounds. It's a whole different ballgame. Distractions go way up, and you might see the dog kind of regress a bit.
So you need even more patience then.
Exactly. And maybe even step back to the indoor basics if you need to. He also really highlights rewarding the dog the moment they're not pulling.
Catch them being good.
Yes, even that tiny pause before they might lean into the leash.
Hmm.
Notice it, grab their attention, reward that connection.
Okay. And the technique of just stopping or even stepping back when the leash tightens, both Zach, George, and McCann talk about that, don't they?
They do. It's a very clear message to the dog. Pull, it stops the fun. Pulling stops forward movement. It actually works against what they want.
Zach George also mentions, kind of jokingly, the obvious dilemma.
Yeah. That feeling like you're not actually going anywhere at first.
Exactly. Like your walk becomes just standing still and taking one step. But he stresses that loose leash walking is built on those tiny successes. You have to celebrate the small wins.
Absolutely. Reward frequently for just a few seconds of no tension. Give easy commands like sit for reinforcement, baby steps.
Now, McCann dog training introduces something really practical they call the doorway ritual.
Yes, I thought that was great. It's all about preventing that explosion of energy the second the door opens.
How does that work exactly?
Well, Carol from McCann suggests keeping the dog leashed before you open the door, and then you just wait. Wait for them to offer eye contact, to be calm before you say okay and let them go through.
So it teaches impulse control right at the threshold.
Precisely. And
Yeah.
it sets the expectation for how you leave the house. Plus, it's a safety thing too, right? You don't want a dog bolting out an open door.
Definitely not. And what's the consequence if they pull after you say, okay?
Back inside you go, immediately. The reward going outside is removed. It clearly links pulling with losing the privilege.
Okay, so consistency there is vital.
Hugely. And she also suggests sometimes rewarding that calm waiting before you go out by tossing a treat back inside. It really reinforces that choosing calm behavior leads to good things even before the walk starts.
That's smart. Building on that control, McCann also talks about strengthening your dog's focus and attention while you're actually outside.
Right. Using their name. Saying their name positively. Pairing it with rewards treats at first, then praise helps build a really strong recall and keeps their attention on you, even with distractions around.
And that foundational attention work makes the actual loose walking easier down the line, I imagine.
For sure. If they're tuned in to you, they're less likely to be pulling off towards every interesting smell. She also suggests using high-value toys sometimes during the walk.
As a reward.
Yeah, as a reward to keep them engaged, keep their focus high. Especially helpful once the initial excitement of being outside wears off a bit. Keeps it fun and rewarding to stay connected.
Okay, now McCann also talks about using leash pressure as communication. This sounds a bit different from just stopping.
It is. It's more nuanced. She describes using very gentle, slight tension, like little pulses, not as a correction or punishment, but as information, a way to guide the dog.
Gentle guidance. Okay.
Yeah, the key is gentle, no jerking. It's about providing feedback through the leash. She explains a technique where if a dog pulls, you stop, use a slight shift in your own body, like your hip, to turn them gently back towards you, maintaining that light tension in the direction you want to go.
And then reward when they respond.
Instantly. The second they ease up or turn with you, you reward that response to the gentle guidance.
Interesting. It sounds like a more advanced step maybe once they understand the basic tight leash means stop idea.
Exactly. It's a refinement. Okay, so shifting gears a little, that Yukonuba article on dog agility seems like a totally different topic, but there are connections, aren't there?
Yeah, at first glance you think, agility, what's that got to do with my dog pulling? But it presents agility as this really fun, engaging activity.
Definitely. Great for physical exercise and mental stimulation.
Yeah.
The dog learns to navigate obstacles, jumps, tunnels, weave pulls while you're working on handling and communication. Teamwork again.
And the article points out it's pretty accessible. You don't have to aim for crufts, you know?
Right. Even just a weekly class could be a great introduction.
Yeah.
Or they mention agility camps if you want a more immersive start or want to boost your skills quickly. Lots of breeds can do it.
And thinking about our leash pulling problem, agility requires focus, listening, working with the handler. Those skills could definitely carry over to walks, couldn't they?
Absolutely. Plus, like we talked about with energy levels, it's a fantastic way to burn off steam constructively. A dog that's had a good agility session is likely to be mentally and physically tired in a good way.
Which, again, makes them potentially calmer and more receptive when it is time for that neighborhood walk. It's not just about tiring them out physically, it's that mental engagement, too.
Yeah, it teaches them to work with you, focus on a task. And the article mentioned some camps also offer things like flyball or nose work, more ways to engage different drives.
Good point. Variety is good. It does mention being careful, though, especially with young dogs.
Yes. Important safety note about waiting until dogs are physically mature, like over 18 months, for higher jumps or weave poles to protect their joints. And finding qualified instructors with safe equipment is crucial.
So, even if competitive agility isn't your goal, maybe exploring something like it could be a really helpful addition to your routine. Provides that outlet, that mental work, which supports everything else, including leash manners.
I think so. It's part of that holistic view, meeting all the dog's needs, physical and mental, which makes training in other areas like leash walking much easier.
Okay, wow. We've covered a lot of ground, from basic principles to specific techniques and even other activities. Let's try and boil this down. What are the absolute core takeaways here for someone struggling with leash pulling?
Well, number one, overwhelmingly, is positive reinforcement. Build the behavior you want with rewards. It's just way more effective and better for your relationship than corrections.
Right. And start simple. Start that leash training inside, in a calm space, to set your dog up for success. Minimize those distractions early on.
Patience and consistency came up again and again. It's not an overnight fix. There will be setbacks, especially when you move outdoors. You just have to stick with it.
And celebrate those small wins. Reward even a few steps of loose leash. Don't wait for perfection. Frequent rewards for good moments.
Building that basic attention, getting your dog to focus on you when you say their name, even with distractions, that's fundamental. It makes everything else easier.
And understanding how to use the leash, not just as a restraint, but as a communication tool, whether it's stopping dead or using that gentle pressure McCann described, seems key.
Definitely. And finally, don't underestimate the power of appropriate exercise and mental stimulation. Activities like agility or even just dedicated playtime can really help manage energy levels and improve focus, which indirectly helps your leash training.
Yeah, it all ties together. So teaching your dog to walk nicely isn't just one technique, it's a process. It takes understanding your dog, being patient, being consistent, and rewarding the right stuff.
Exactly. It's a journey you take together.
Yeah. So here's maybe a final thought to chew on. How much could you improve your training just by really digging into your specific dog's breed traits and energy needs, tailoring your approach based on that? And could adding something fun and engaging like agility do more than just tire them out? Could it actually transform your communication and cooperation across the board?
Something to think about.
Definitely. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.